How to outsmart anyone without saying a word. Nietzsche on power, silence, and self-mastery. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It truly helps the channel grow and continue to create contents like this. Silence can be sharper than speech, if you know what you're doing with it. Not the silence of fear, the kind that shrinks you, but the silence of control, the kind that makes other people reveal themselves while you remain unshaken. Nietzsche understood something about human beings that most of us learn too late. We are not persuaded only by arguments. We are moved by presence, by posture, by timing, by the unseen forces of pride, insecurity, hunger for status, and the quiet panic of being judged. How to outsmart anyone without saying a word. Sounds like a magician's trick, doesn't it? Like you're going to walk into a room and win without lifting a finger. But Nietzsche wouldn't have admired cheap victories. He would have laughed at the idea of winning through performance alone. What he would admire is mastery. Mastery of self, mastery of perception, mastery of the invisible game that people play while they pretend they aren't playing any game at all. I've lived long enough to watch two kinds of people move through the world. The first kind speaks constantly. They narrate their worth. They explain themselves before anyone asks. They fill every pause because a pause feels like danger. The second kind doesn't need to announce much. They enter a room and seem to carry gravity. Not because they are loud, but because they are centered. Others lean in. Others hesitate. Others start offering information like coins. That's where the outsmarting begins. Nietzsche had a phrase he loved in spirit, even if not always in those exact words. Strength is not merely what you do, but what you refrain from doing. The modern world teaches you to react instantly. Reply now. Defend now. Prove now. But a reactive person is an easy person to control. If someone can predict your reaction, they can pull your strings like a puppeteer. So the first rule of silent advantage is this: refuse to be mechanically predictable. When someone tries to provoke you, little barbed comments, dismissive smiles, a sudden challenge in front of others, most people leap into explanation. They try to win back respect through words. That's the trap. Because the provoker wants your attention, your energy, your emotional display. They want to see you dance. Nietzsche would call this a test of power, not power as cruelty, but power as self-possession. Self-possession looks like calm delay. A pause. A slow breath. A look that says, "I heard you, and I'm not moved." The pause does something to the other person's nervous system. It creates uncertainty. And uncertainty makes people reveal their motives. They talk more. They clarify too much. They overplay their hand. Your silence becomes a mirror they can't stop staring into. Now, this is important. Silence is not emptiness. It is not passive. It is a choice. And choices are what signal strength. Nietzsche wrote about masks, how human beings wear them, how they become necessary in society, and how the strongest people choose their masks rather than being trapped by them. There is a kind of silent mask that says, "You don't get immediate access to me." That mask does not mean you are cold. It means you are not available for manipulation. So when you want to outsmart someone without words, you begin by changing your tempo. Most people move at the speed of the crowd. You move at the speed of intention. You slow down a fraction. You take your time to look, to listen, to decide. A person who is not rushed cannot be easily pushed. I once watched a young manager get cornered in a meeting. Someone senior made a sly joke at his expense. The room laughed politely, the kind of laughter that smells like fear. The young manager's face flushed. He started talking fast, trying to explain. The senior person smiled, because the explanation was the meal. Every sentence dug the hole deeper. A year later, that same young manager had learned something. Another joke came. The room waited for his reaction. He didn't speak. He simply looked at the person, calmly, as if considering whether the comment was worth a reply. Then he smiled slightly, not a friendly smile, but a measured one, and continued with his presentation as if nothing had happened. The senior person's smile faded. The room's loyalty shifted, just a notch. Because everyone in that room understood the unspoken message. You cannot steer me with your humor. That is Nietzschean strength, not needing approval from the herd. Not letting the herd's mood decide your worth. Now, the second rule is observation. If you want to outsmart anyone, you need to stop advertising your inner state. Most people leak their intentions through nervous habits, fidgeting, overlaughing, filling silence, explaining. When you quiet those leaks, you gain information. The world becomes louder when you stop talking. And here's the truth, people tell on themselves constantly. They reveal what they value, what they fear, what they envy, what they want you to believe. The outsmarting is not in cleverness, it's in noticing. Nietzsche would tell you that most human behavior is driven by will, by an urge to expand, to matter, to dominate a story. The will to power does not always look like aggression. Sometimes it looks like moral superiority. Sometimes it looks like concern. Sometimes it looks like being the one who knows best. When you listen without reacting, you can sense the shape of someone's will. And once you see it, you can avoid being absorbed by it. So practice this. When someone speaks, don't rush to respond. Watch what they're trying to achieve. Are they seeking alliance? Seeking status? Seeking control? Seeking reassurance? Their words are the surface. Their aim is the current underneath. Your silence is how you feel the current. Third rule, control your face. People underestimate this. The face is an instrument. It plays your emotional music for everyone to hear. If you want silent advantage, you make your face less available as a scoreboard. Not blank like a stone, but steady. Warm when you choose it. Neutral when you choose it. Never fully hijacked. This is not about being fake. It's about not giving your opponent free data. A raised eyebrow at the wrong moment tells them you're rattled. A laugh that's too eager tells them you want acceptance. A grimace tells them they landed a hit. A steady expression tells them, I am not easy to read. Fourth rule, position. Nietzsche cared about perspective, how the world looks different depending on where you stand. In social life, position isn't only status. It's physical arrangement too. Where you sit. Where you stand. How you occupy space. People who feel small often take up small space. People who feel uncertain angle their body away. People who are apologizing lean in too much. So outsmarting without words can be as simple as this. Occupy your space calmly. Shoulders relaxed. Feet grounded. Movements economical. Look up more than you look down. When you speak, if you ever choose to, speak from stillness, not from scramble. But even in silence, your body is speaking. Fifth rule, choose when to withhold. The world rewards constant sharing, constant accessibility. But Nietzsche admired those who could endure solitude, those who could keep something private, those who didn't trade their inner life for social currency. The person who reveals everything becomes easy to manage. The person who reveals selectively becomes intriguing, and more importantly, free. If you want to outsmart someone, don't give them the full map of your mind. Give them enough to work with, but not enough to predict you. Let them underestimate you. Underestimation is a strategic gift, if you have the patience to accept it. And patience is the rarest power of all. A sovereign knows something else, too. Not every battle deserves a sword. Some battles deserve a glance, a pause, and then your attention moving elsewhere. Attention is your most valuable resource. Where you place it signals what you consider real. Nietzsche would say that many people try to win by making you react, because reaction is a form of submission. If your mood can be steered by their mood, you are already inside their orbit. So the next rule of outsmarting without words is this: move your attention like a king moves his gaze. Slowly. Deliberately. Without apology. When someone is trying to dominate a conversation, you don't need to interrupt. You don't need to compete. You simply stop feeding them. You listen, but you don't reward. No eager nods. No nervous laughter. No quick agreement to smooth tension. Just calm presence. People who crave control often live on micro rewards. Take those away, and they either soften or escalate. Either way, they show you who they are. This is where silence becomes psychological judo. You let their force reveal their imbalance. There's an old scene I still remember from a dinner long ago. A man at the table enjoyed humiliating others with clever remarks. Not loud, just sharp. He aimed those remarks like darts and watched for flinches. Most people flinched. They laughed too hard. They protested too quickly. They tried to prove they were not what he implied. Across from him sat a woman who barely spoke all night. Not timid. Just precise. Each time he tossed a dart, she looked at him as if she were watching a performer repeat a tired trick. She didn't glare. She didn't smile. She simply gave him nothing, no outrage, no embarrassment, no performance. After 3 or 4 attempts, he stopped aiming at her. His power had no purchase. That's the first skill, become difficult to hook. People hook you through 3 main handles: your need to be liked, your need to be right, and your fear of being seen as weak. If you want silent advantage, you loosen those handles. Not by becoming indifferent to human connection, but by no longer making connection your master. Nietzsche warned about the herd, the social pressure to conform, to win approval, to borrow a ready-made morality so you don't have to forge your own. The herd punishes difference, often subtly. It rewards obedience with belonging. Many people accept this bargain without realizing it. They become predictable. They become tame. To outsmart without saying a word is to refuse taming. Now, a second skill: let people over-explain. This is almost comical once you see it. When you stay calm and silent, many people interpret the silence as a question mark. They rush to fill it. They keep talking, trying to win you over, trying to justify themselves, trying to control how you see them. And in doing so, they reveal their leverage points. They reveal what they're insecure about. They reveal what they're trying to hide. They reveal what they want you to admire. Your silence becomes a spotlight. Their words step into it. If you want to practice, do this in everyday life. Ask a simple question, then stop. Don't rescue the conversation. Don't offer reassurance. Just listen. Most people will tell you far more than they intended, because silence makes them uncomfortable. And discomfort makes them talk. Third skill: master the soft no. You can communicate refusal without any argument. How? With steady eye contact and a calm delay in response. Not hostile. Not apologetic. Simply unhurried. When someone makes a demand or pushes for agreement, you pause, look at them, and then let your expression say, "I'm considering." The pause alone breaks their momentum. It signals you are not being pulled. Often the pressure will ease before you even speak. Because most social pressure relies on speed. It relies on you agreeing before you notice you're being cornered. Fourth skill: choose your exits. Outsmarting isn't always confrontation. Sometimes it's disappearing from the game. Nietzsche admired withdrawal, not as cowardice, but as selection. The strong person selects their company. The strong person selects their battles. The strong person selects which rooms deserve their spirit. So if you're in a conversation that's turning into a performance, you don't need to win the performance. You can leave. You can shift your body. You can turn your attention elsewhere. You can excuse yourself to refill water. Your movement is a statement. This is not where my life happens. That is power without drama. Fifth skill: use the contrast effect. This is subtle and potent. If everyone is frantic, you become calm. If everyone is joking, you become sincere. If everyone is talking, you become quiet. Humans notice contrast more than content. The calm person in a frantic room becomes memorable. The quiet person in a loud room becomes mysterious. The unbothered person in a reactive room becomes influential. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because your nervous system is broadcasting stability. And stability, in a world addicted to agitation, feels like authority. Now I need to say something ethical, because Nietzsche gets misused. Outsmarting can easily become manipulation. The goal here is not to humiliate people, not to control them, not to play games for sport. The goal is self-mastery, so that you are not controlled. There is a difference between being strategic and being cruel. Cruelty is reactive power. Strategy is chosen power. Nietzsche respected chosen power. A sixth skill: become hard to offend. Not because you lack feeling, but because you refuse to make other people the authors of your inner weather. Offense is often a demand for the world to agree with your self-image. When someone insults you, the ego wants to defend the image immediately. But the sovereign self asks, is this true? Is this important? Does this deserve my life force? Sometimes the best response is none. Not because you're defeated, but because you are unwilling to elevate nonsense into significance. Silence is also a test. When you don't respond, you learn who respects you and who needs control. The respectful person adjusts. The controller escalates. Either way, you receive clarity. Clarity is a form of intelligence. Seventh skill: let your standards speak. People try to outsmart with clever lines. The deeper outsmarting is to have standards that are nonverbal. You show up on time. You keep your posture. You don't chase. You don't beg. You don't over-explain. You do what you said you would do. Your consistency becomes your argument. Nietzsche believed that becoming is stronger than convincing. Your life is the persuasion. And finally, the quietest skill of all: cultivate inner silence. Because the outer silence only works if the inner silence exists. If you are silent on the outside but frantic on the inside, people will still sense the volatility. You'll leak it through your eyes, your breathing, your micro-movements. Real silent power comes from inner calm. So train it. Spend time alone without noise. Walk without headphones. Sit with discomfort without immediately feeding it distraction. Learn to watch thoughts rise and fall without obeying them. The person who can sit with their own mind without fleeing becomes terrifyingly free in social situations, because they are no longer hostage to the need for constant stimulation or reassurance. That is how you outsmart anyone without saying a word. You become someone who cannot be easily hooked, rushed, or owned. You observe more than you announce. You let others reveal themselves. You move your attention with intention. You keep your inner authority inside your own chest. And if you want one image to carry with you, make it this: a mountain in fog. The fog swirls, the weather changes, people shout, storms pass, but the mountain does not argue with the storm. It remains. It doesn't need to prove it's a mountain. It simply is. Nietzsche would call that strength. Not loud strength. Not performative strength. The kind of strength that makes words optional.